Hi, and welcome to True Crime, a channel dedicated to the dark underworld of criminal activity carried out by gangsters, mobsters, cartel leaders, and others. In today's video, we'll be exploring the dark and twisted world of a mafia boss so ruthless and feared, people are too scared to even whisper his name. From his brutal rise to power to the shadowy empire he commands, we'll reveal the secrets behind one of the most dangerous men on the planet. Let's get started. Anthony Casso, who hailed from South Brooklyn, was the youngest child of Michael and Margaret Casso and grew up in a family with a rich Italian heritage. In the 1890s, all of Casso's grandparents migrated from Campania, Italy, to the United States. Salvatore Colambrano, a captain in the Genovese crime family, was Casso's godfather and a prominent figure on the Brooklyn docks. At 16, Casso dropped out of school and started working as a longshoreman for his father. He was a natural with firearms, and as a young child, he and his friends would shoot pistols at targets on rooftops, honing his shooting skills. Casso also made extra money by hunting hawks that preyed on pigeons for pigeon tenders. He weighed around 185 pounds and was 5 feet 6 inches tall. Casso was a troubled teenager and belonged to the notorious South Brooklyn Boys gang in the 1950s. His involvement with the gang resulted in him being arrested in 1958 after a violent altercation with Irish-American gangsters. According to Philip Carlo, Casso later recounted how his father had tried in vain to scare him straight during a visit to the police station. Casso would eventually become one of the most feared mafia hitmen and underbosses in New York City in the 1980s. His rise in organized crime was largely due to his paranoid nature. As a member of the Lucchese crime family, Casso had no qualms about breaking sacred mafia rules and would kill people on the off chance that they were informants, a group he detested more than anything else. Despite being on the run for 3 years, Casso was eventually caught as he stepped out of the shower. In 1993, he admitted to ordering the execution of over 100 people, and he was believed to have executed at least 36 others he suspected of being informants. Casso had earned a reputation for being a detective who could eliminate anyone cooperating with the police, but he ended up becoming an informant himself. He was sentenced to more than 500 years in prison and was incarcerated at Arizona's Supermax prison. Casso passed away in 2020 due to COVID-19. Anthony Casso was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York in the 1940s. As a teenager, he was involved in the South Brooklyn Boys gang and had a talent for shooting. He was also closely connected to the Genovese crime family through his godfather, a captain in the organization. Despite his father's criminal past, Casso chose to follow in his footsteps and even adopted his father's nickname, Gaspipe. After working as a longshoreman, Casso was recruited by the Lucchese Mafia family, where he worked as a loan shark and enforcer for bookmaking. He quickly rose through the ranks and became a made man in 1979, working alongside Vittorio Amuso. Casso and Amuso were involved in various illegal activities such as drug smuggling, gambling, and extortion. They also formed a burglary gang known as the Bypass Gang and stole approximately $100 million. Casso had a dark sense of humor and was known for his violent ways, as evidenced by an incident where he dropped 500 pounds of cargo on a dock worker's foot simply because he wanted to test the quality of the worker's new shoes. Despite being detained several times for various crimes, Casso's cases were always dropped due to witnesses refusing to testify. This allowed him to continue his ascent in the mafia and become one of the most notorious hitmen and underbosses in New York City during the 1980s. John Gotti, a Gambino family leader, organized an attack on the boss of the organization, Paul Castellano, and killed him in December 1985 without seeking permission from the commission, which oversaw such actions among New York's 5 families. This resulted in the bosses of the Genovese and Lucchese families, Anthony Corallo and Vincent Gigante, hiring Anthony Casso to seek revenge. In April 1986, Casso and Amuso learned of a meeting Gotti had scheduled in Brooklyn and rigged the underboss of the Gotti crime family Buick's Electra with explosives. However, Gotti did not attend the meeting, and only the underboss, Frank DeCicco, was killed. Casso then became the consigliere and killed anyone he suspected of being an informant. Casso also hired Louis Ippolito and Stephen Caracappa from the NYPD to provide him with information in exchange for money. They eventually killed 8 people for Casso. Casso spent a lot of money on suits and restaurants while the FBI began spying on him. He had already killed at least 17 people by 1991 and was promoted to underboss in 1990. Bodies were found in garages and car trunks while he was constructing a mansion in Brooklyn. In May 1990, Casso received information about a racketeering indictment and fled with Amuso. Amuso was later apprehended, and Casso appointed Alfonso D'Arco as the boss while he managed the business in secret as the underboss. In December 1985, a dramatic and violent event took place in the world of organized crime in New York City. John Gotti, a powerful figure in the Gambino crime family, orchestrated a coup against Paul Castellano, the family's boss. The move was highly unusual as it went against the protocol established by the Commission, the governing body that oversaw the activities of the 5 major crime families in the city. Typically, any such action would require the permission of the Commission, but Gotti acted independently. The coup resulted in Castellano's murder, which sent shockwaves throughout the underworld. 2 other crime bosses, Anthony Corallo and Vincent Gigante, were enraged by Gotti's actions and engaged Anthony Casso to seek revenge. Casso and Amuso discovered that Gotti was planning a meeting at the Veterans and Friends Club in Brooklyn and decided to take advantage of the opportunity to exact their revenge. They rigged the underboss of Gotti's crime family, Frank DeCicco's Buick Electra, with explosives, intending to kill Gotti. However, Gotti withdrew his attendance at the last moment, and only DeCicco was killed. Casso, who was appointed consigliere, felt more powerful than ever and personally killed anyone he suspected of being an informant. He also hired 2 police officers, Louis Eppolito and Stephen Caracappa, from the NYPD to provide him with information and carry out murders on his behalf. Casso spent extravagantly, buying expensive suits and dining in expensive restaurants while the FBI began to investigate him. Casso's reign of terror continued as he rose through the ranks of the Gambino family, eventually becoming the underboss in 1990. He executed alleged informants and had at least 17 people killed by 1991. Bodies began to turn up in garages and car trunks, and Casso started building a $1 million mansion in the Mill Basin neighborhood of Brooklyn. However, his good fortune came to an end when he received information from the NYPD about a federal court racketeering indictment in May 1990. Casso and Amuso both fled, but Amuso was eventually apprehended in Scranton, Pennsylvania, a year later. Despite Casso's efforts to keep his position, he was forced to appoint Alfonso D'Arco as the new boss while he became the underboss. Casso continued to manage the business in secrecy but eventually went on the run again after his conviction in 1994. His eventual capture and imprisonment marked the end of an era in the world of organized crime in New York City. The journey that led Anthony Casso to become an informant was a tumultuous one. Alfonso D'Arco, who was working with Casso, soon discovered that Casso was not attempting to put a stop to the flow of informants. Rather, he was ruthlessly killing people. Concerned for his children's safety, D'Arco contacted the FBI and agreed to become a government witness. Despite this, Casso continued his violent ways and attempted to have a federal prosecutor and a judge killed in 1992 and 1993. Ronald Goldstock, director of the state's Organized Crime Task Force, noted that individuals like Casso could rise to power fairly quickly in a state of instability. He further commented that all of the families were in a state of collapse. William Y. Doran, head of the FBI's New York Criminal Division, described Casso as crazy rather than intelligent, and despite his frustration at how long it took, he was confident they would catch him. Casso was arrested on January 19, 1993, as he was leaving the shower at his mistress's house in Bud Lake, New Jersey. In 1994, Casso pled guilty to 72 criminal counts, including 14 gangland killings and racketeering. In exchange for a plea bargain, he provided information about individuals like NYPD officers Eppolito and Caracappa. Casso was admitted to the Witness Protection Program while still in federal prison, but the agreement was later canceled due to a series of bribes and attacks. In 1998, a federal judge sentenced Casso to 455 years in prison for racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, bribery, extortion, and tax evasion. In 2009, Casso was diagnosed with prostate cancer while incarcerated at Arizona's United States Penitentiary Tucson. On November 5, 2020, he tested positive for COVID-19, and by then, he was already confined to a wheelchair and had breathing problems. Casso requested compassionate discharge, which was denied by a judge on November 28, 2020. He passed away on December 15, 2020, while on a ventilator. Thank you for watching another amazing video from our true crime team. Like, comment, and subscribe. And stay tuned to our next real-life true crime video.